You ever been in a room with someone and suddenly everything slows down? Not because time actually changed, but because of the way they're looking at you? I'm not talking about a normal glance. I'm not talking about someone just noticing your new hairstyle or catching your eye in passing. No. I'm talking about that lingering look, the one that holds your gaze for a second too long. That's not just curiosity, that's desire in disguise. A married man who desires you won't always come out and say it. He might not even understand it himself fully, but his eyes will say what his mouth won't dare to speak. Because the eyes, they're the one place we can't fake. You can pretend with words, you can lie with gestures, but your eyes, they tell on you every single time. He'll look at you when you're not looking, he'll look again when you are. And then, just when you lock eyes with him, he'll hesitate. Maybe look away quickly, or maybe not. Maybe he'll hold it, as if that single look is feeding a hunger he doesn't want to admit exists. And don't fool yourself. When a married man does this, he's not admiring from afar. He's imagining something deeper, something he knows he shouldn't, something his vows can't cover. You see, desire begins quietly. It doesn't start with loud declarations or obvious moves. It begins in the silence of a gaze that lingers too long. That's where the line gets crossed, not with a touch, but with a look. A look that tries to see into your soul, but doesn't belong there. And maybe he thinks you don't notice. Maybe he believes his stares are subtle, but they're not. You feel them. You feel them across the room. You feel them in your skin. You feel them behind your back, and you feel them long after you've walked away. Let me tell you something powerful. Your awareness is your protection. When you know what's happening, when you recognize that his look is no longer innocent, you have a choice. You can either entertain it or shut it down with silence, with stillness, with strength. Because once a man starts looking at you like that, consistently, intentionally, deeply, he's already left a piece of himself at your feet, and he's hoping you'll pick it up. But don't. Don't pick up what isn't yours. Don't carry what was never meant to be your burden. Because when you do, you start entering a game with no winners, only wounds. Your power is not in returning the gaze. It's in breaking it, quietly, cleanly, without explanation. That's the kind of strength that leaves a man questioning everything, not because you entertained him, but because you didn't. That's how you protect your peace and your future, by recognizing the look before it becomes a move. When a married man desires you, he starts creating opportunities that didn't exist before. He'll suddenly be around more than usual. He'll just happen to be walking the same hallway, showing up at the same events, or taking his lunch break at the same time as you. At first, it might feel like coincidence. You may even brush it off once, twice, but then you start noticing a pattern. And patterns don't lie. He begins to orchestrate moments, small ones, harmless ones. At least that's how he presents them. He'll position himself in your space, not too close, but close enough. And when he speaks, it's no longer just friendly, it's intentional. There's a softness in his tone when he talks to you that's different from how he talks to anyone else. He's not just being nice, he's being available. You see, desire doesn't always knock on your door with loud footsteps. Sometimes it tiptoes in, masked as kindness, as care, as innocent curiosity. But behind that smile is a silent question. Do you feel what I feel? Now, he may never say it out loud. In fact, he'll likely never admit it to anyone. But every action he takes around you becomes a statement. He wants to be seen by you, not just noticed, seen. And to be seen by someone when you're already committed to another, that's not about companionship anymore. That's about emotional hunger. So he feeds it, not with romance, but with proximity. He'll offer help when you didn't ask. He'll linger in conversations that don't need to be long. He might even ask questions about your life, your interests, your goals, things that sound like small talk, but feel like something deeper. And if you're not careful, you'll start to lean into it because attention, when delivered consistently, starts to feel like affection. But it's not. It's a trap. Because every time he shows up, what he's really doing is testing the boundaries, yours and his. And here's the truth. A married man who's investing that kind of emotional energy in someone else isn't just being friendly. He's wandering emotionally, mentally, spiritually. He may not have taken physical steps yet, but make no mistake, he's left the room of commitment in his heart. The danger lies in how subtle it all is, how easy it is to misread it, or even worse, enjoy it. Because when someone shows up for you repeatedly, it feels good. It fills a gap you didn't even know was there. But it's not real. It's not clean. It's not whole. And it comes at a cost you don't want to pay. So when a man starts creating these moments, recognize the move. He's not pursuing connection. He's avoiding confrontation with his own discontent. Don't be the place he runs to escape himself. Be the mirror that reminds him of who he's supposed to be. Walk away from the conversation before it turns into a confession. Because just like fire needs oxygen to grow, his desire needs your response to survive. Don't give it breath. Let silence be your boundary. Let distance be your answer. Let wisdom guide your next step. When a married man desires you, one of the most subtle yet telling signs is how he changes his behavior around you, especially when his wife is not present. He becomes more relaxed, more bold, and more revealing. It's as if her absence gives him unspoken permission to let down the guard he normally wears. And that shift isn't accidental. It's intentional. It's a sign that something internal is already leaning toward you, even if he hasn't said a word out loud. Pay close attention to the way he behaves when she's not around. Suddenly, he's more attentive. He listens closer. He laughs harder. He may even stand closer than he usually does. That invisible wall that separates a man who's taken from the rest of the world, it begins to drop. And it always starts with body language. His posture opens. His eye contact lingers. His voice softens. He gives you his full presence as if, in that moment, you are the only one that exists. And this isn't just about attraction. This is about emotional availability that was supposed to be reserved for his wife, but is now being redirected toward you. Whether he realizes it or not, his guard is down, and his desire is speaking louder than his words. Then come the compliments, soft, personal, and emotionally targeted. He won't say something general like, "You look nice." He'll say, "There's something different about you today," or "You always know how to make people feel calm." These are the types of compliments that go beyond surface level. They're designed to touch your heart, not just your ego. And the fact that he's saying them only when his wife is not around, that's not coincidence. That's strategy. Because if his words change when she enters the room, that means he knows he's crossing a line. A man who's not hiding anything doesn't change his tone based on who's present. So if he's one person with her and another when she's gone, what you're seeing is the truth of his desire. And that truth matters. It matters because it places you at a crossroads. If you ignore the shift, you may start to entertain the attention. If you acknowledge it for what it is, you have the power to step back before his emotional desire turns into a relational mistake. Remember this, if he can compartmentalize his loyalty in private, he can compromise his integrity in silence. Don't be the space where he hides his conflict. Be the reminder of what he stands to lose. Silence is strength, and distance is clarity. Let both speak for you. When a married man desires you, one of the most revealing signs is how protective he suddenly becomes over you. without ever officially claiming you. He won't say you're his, but he'll act like it. He'll watch how other men talk to you. He'll insert himself into conversations when someone else starts giving you too much attention. And he'll do it all under the guise of just looking out for you. But it's not just concern, it's possession disguised as care. It often starts small. Maybe he makes a comment like, "Be careful with him. I've heard things." Or, "He's not really your type." It sounds friendly on the surface, but the intention runs deeper. He's not just advising you, he's marking territory he hasn't earned the right to mark. And that comes from desire. A desire he may never fully admit to, but one he can't stop expressing in indirect ways. You'll notice he keeps track of your mood. He'll ask if you're okay when you're quiet, notice when your energy changes, and subtly get bothered when you're too happy around someone else. He wants to be the reason you're good, and the first to know when something's wrong. That's not just friendship. That's emotional territory being claimed. And the most telling part? He does all this while maintaining his public image as a committed man. He'll never cross the physical line in front of others, but emotionally, he's already leaning way past where he should. He's emotionally present for you in ways he should only be for his wife. And that's not harmless, it's calculated. This kind of emotional protectiveness is dangerous because it creates a false sense of connection. You start to feel like you matter to him on a deeper level. You may even start to depend on that energy. And that's where the soul tie begins to form. Not with words or actions, but with consistent, unspoken attention that feels too personal to ignore. What makes this all more deceptive is that he'll often be the one to remind you of boundaries just to keep the illusion that nothing inappropriate is happening. He wants you close enough to feel chosen, but far enough to stay in control. That's not love, that's manipulation dressed in affection. So if you find yourself constantly being looked after, checked on, or protected by a married man, understand that those actions are not neutral. They are indicators. Indicators that he's emotionally engaged in a way that breaks trust before any vows are physically touched. Protect your peace. When someone who's already taken starts acting like you belong to him, the most powerful thing you can do is step back and refuse to play a part in his confusion. When a married man desires you, one of the most telling behaviors is how he suddenly becomes emotionally available in a way that feels deeper than friendship. He opens up to you, he tells you things he doesn't tell anyone else, maybe not even his wife. He shares his frustrations, his dreams, his struggles. And in those moments, it feels like he's peeling back the layers just for you. That's not casual. That's emotional intimacy, and it's intentional. You see, when a man starts to build emotional closeness outside of his marriage, especially with another woman, it's rarely accidental. It may start as simple conversation, harmless venting about work or life, but over time, that connection grows stronger. He finds comfort in you. He feels heard, validated, even seen in ways he may claim he hasn't felt in years. And slowly, you become his safe space. That's the trap. Because emotional intimacy is more dangerous than physical attraction. You might not touch, you might not flirt openly, but the depth of those talks, the way he confides in you, the way he lights up when he's around you, those are signs he's forming an attachment. And that attachment is rooted in desire, whether he admits it or not. The issue here is not just about what he shares, it's about who he shares it with. When he chooses you to carry the weight of his heart instead of his wife, he's emotionally crossing a boundary that should never be blurred. And in doing so, he's quietly pulling you into a role you didn't ask for. What's even more confusing is that he may compliment you in ways that feel sincere, He might say things like, "You just get me," or "I can talk to you about anything." And it feels good because who doesn't want to feel seen? But this is how the line gets crossed, not through physical actions, but through consistent emotional closeness that builds a private world between just the two of you. And that private world becomes dangerous. You may start to feel responsible for his happiness. You may hold back your own emotions to protect his. You may even start to develop feelings, not because you intended to, but because emotional bonds are powerful. That's how soul ties are formed, through deep, repeated vulnerability shared with the wrong person. So if you notice a married man always opening up to you, always leaning on you for emotional support, always turning to you when he's down, understand that this is not friendship. It's a form of intimacy that's rooted in unspoken desire. And it's your responsibility to protect your peace, your dignity, and your emotional boundaries. Don't confuse emotional availability with sincerity. Just because someone opens up doesn't mean they're being honest with themselves or fair to you. Sometimes the most revealing sign that a married man desires you isn't in what he says, but in how he acts when other people are around. If you start to notice him behaving differently in public versus private, if his energy shifts when others are near, that's not a coincidence. That's a sign of hidden interest. A man who has nothing to hide hides nothing. But when desire enters the picture, behavior changes subtly, quietly, but clearly. You might notice that he talks to you less when others are around. Maybe he avoids too much eye contact in group settings. Maybe he pretends like your bond isn't as deep as it really is. And yet, when you're alone, he opens up, he smiles more, he leans in closer. He seems fully present, fully engaged. That contrast, how he shifts when no one is watching, is where the truth lives. Because when a man desires someone he knows he shouldn't, he learns to compartmentalize. He learns to put on one face in public and another in private. He becomes careful, calculated, strategic, not out of respect, but out of fear. Fear of being exposed, fear of being questioned, fear of being seen for what it really is, emotional infidelity. And if you're not careful, you'll misread that private attention as something special. You'll start to believe that maybe it's different with you, that maybe he sees you in a way he doesn't see anyone else. But don't be fooled. The reason he hides it is because he knows it's inappropriate. The reason he acts differently is because deep down, he knows the feelings he has for you aren't just friendly. That duality, kind and professional in public, overly warm and personal in private, isn't respect, it's desire, wearing a mask. And the longer you entertain it, the more confusing it becomes for you emotionally. Because a man who treats you like a secret is never planning to make you a priority. Don't be impressed by the whispers in the shadows. Pay attention to how he speaks your name in the light. If he values you, he won't compartmentalize you. He won't create a private world where only he and his desires are comfortable. He'll honor you the same whether people are watching or not. So if his energy changes when others are near, if the man who laughs with you in private suddenly grows distant when eyes are on him, know that it's not discretion, it's desire hiding behind a performance. And nothing hidden like that ever ends in peace. One of the clearest signs that a married man desires you, one that often flies under the radar, is when he starts opening up about his personal life in a way that feels too intimate, too detailed, and too emotionally charged. See, it's one thing for someone to casually mention their weekend or share surface level updates, but it's an entirely different thing when a man begins exposing the cracks in his marriage to you. When he starts talking about what's missing at home, you are no longer just a friend, a coworker, or a casual connection. You're becoming his emotional outlet. And here's the truth. Men don't just randomly become emotionally vulnerable, especially married men. If he's telling you things like, she doesn't understand me, or we haven't connected in a long time, or I feel invisible in my own house, he's not just venting, he's creating emotional intimacy. He's drawing you in without saying it out loud. He's hoping you'll feel like you're the solution to his unhappiness. But that's not your role. That's manipulation wrapped in vulnerability. You see, when a man desires a woman outside his marriage, he often starts by shifting the narrative. He paints himself as the victim of a loveless relationship. He makes her, the wife, seem distant, cold, or inattentive. Why? Because if you start to feel sorry for him, and you start to see him as emotionally wounded, it becomes easier for him to cross boundaries. It becomes easier for him to justify the way he looks at you, the way he talks to you, the way he lingers just a little too long when no one's watching. And if you're not careful, you'll begin to take on the emotional burden he's supposed to be working through at home. You'll start playing the role of the listener, the comforter, the rescuer. But make no mistake, those roles always end the same way, with you being emotionally drained and him still married. Never confuse emotional openness with genuine connection. A man who shares the struggles of his marriage with you, especially when it feels one-sided or heavily romanticized, isn't always seeking support. Sometimes he's seeking escape. And if you become that escape, you become part of a storyline that never ends well. Real desire is silent until it's safe. But unhealthy desire speaks in whispers of, you understand me more than she does, and that is not love. That's a warning. So if a married man is constantly confiding in you, especially about things he should be working on with his wife, understand this, he's not just talking. He's slowly, carefully, emotionally pursuing you. And you owe it to your own peace not to be anyone's emotional crutch when you were born to be a whole, healed woman. Not a hiding place. Sometimes the biggest giveaways are not in what a man says, but in how he acts when other people are around. One of the clearest signs that a married man desires you is when his behavior toward you shifts dramatically in public versus private. Around others, he becomes cautious, almost guarded. But when it's just the two of you, he loosens up, becomes warmer, more playful, more attentive. That dual behavior is not by accident. It's calculated. It's a sign he's feeling something he knows he shouldn't. Think about it. A man who has nothing to hide doesn't need to act differently based on who's in the room. But a married man who desires you, he becomes hyper-aware. Around his wife, he might barely acknowledge you. Around coworkers, he'll keep it strictly professional. But when he gets a moment alone with you, suddenly the energy shifts. The eye contact lingers. The compliments surface. The way he talks to you becomes softer, more personal. That's not coincidence. That's intentional. He's trying to keep his feelings hidden from the world, but also hoping you notice that something unspoken is happening between you. That secrecy is part of the thrill for him. He wants to feel desired, and he wants you to feel special, but only in moments he thinks he can get away with it. You'll notice the small things. He might lower his voice when speaking to you one-on-one, or find subtle ways to touch your hand, your shoulder, even if just briefly. But around others, he pulls back. He avoids standing too close. He makes sure the conversation doesn't feel too familiar. That duality, it's not respect, it's guilt dressed as discretion. The truth is, when a man wants to be close to you in private but distant in public, it means he doesn't want accountability. He wants the connection without the consequences. He wants to entertain the fantasy without disrupting his reality. That is not desire grounded in truth. That is desire fueled by selfishness. You should never have to guess how someone feels about you based on the number of people in the room. A man who honors you, who values you, will never keep your worth a secret. But a married man who desires you will try to feed you attention in silence, hoping you'll mistake secrecy for depth. But here's the hard truth. If someone can only express their interest in the shadows, it's not love. It's not even real interest. It's a distraction. And if he's hiding you from others, it means he already knows what he's doing is wrong. Don't let his confusion become your pain. Don't let his fear of being exposed make you feel like you need to shrink just to be seen. You deserve to be loved boldly, not carefully, chosen in public, not just appreciated in secret. Let his mixed signals stay where they belong. Behind a closed door, he was too afraid to open with honesty. When a married man desires you, one of the most revealing signs is how he begins to insert himself into your personal life. At first, it seems harmless. He asks how your day was, remembers small details you mentioned in passing, shows interest in your dreams, your struggles, your routines. But over time, he crosses invisible boundaries. He doesn't just want to know how you're doing. He wants to be a part of it. He wants to feel like he matters in your world. And more importantly, he wants you to rely on him emotionally. It starts small. He offers advice. He checks in often. He celebrates your wins and consoles your losses. On the surface, it feels supportive. It feels kind. But underneath it, there's a motive. He's creating an emotional dependence, not because he wants to protect you, but because he wants a place in your heart. A space that doesn't belong to him. He'll start asking about the people in your life, not just casually, but with intent. He wants to know if you're dating, if there's anyone serious, if you're emotionally available. He might pretend it's just friendly curiosity, but it's not. It's a subtle way of gauging his chances, a way of assessing where he fits into your story. And if he senses there's a gap, he'll fill it with compliments, comfort, and consistency. He'll offer to help with things no one asked him to. He'll show up in moments when you're vulnerable, when you're hurt, disappointed, or just need someone to talk to. He positions himself as the safe space, but the truth is, his emotional investment isn't rooted in selflessness, it's rooted in desire. He wants to be the man you turn to when you need strength, while he hides the fact that he's too weak to honor his own vow. He creates this emotional bond, but doesn't tell you what he's really doing. He won't admit that he's emotionally cheating, that he's building a connection that has all the intimacy of a relationship without the label. And that's what makes it so dangerous. Because emotional affairs don't start with sex. They start with attention, with consistency, with closeness that slowly begins to feel like more. And here's where many women get trapped. Because the emotional bond feels real. It feels comforting. He listens. He cares. He's there. But it's all happening in the shadows. You begin to count on someone who doesn't truly belong to you. You begin to share your life with someone who's still living a double life. And before you know it, you've opened your heart to someone who only opened his schedule, not his soul. The truth is, no man should have that much access to your heart while still committed to someone else. No matter how emotionally available he seems, he is still emotionally unavailable in the only way that counts. He cannot fully choose you. And if he's still tied to someone else, you will always come second, not because you're not worthy, but because he's not free. So be careful, be wise. Emotional intimacy with a married man is not affection. It's manipulation dressed in kindness. Don't let his presence in your daily life convince you that he deserves a place in your future. Because the man who wants a future with you won't build it on secrets. He'll build it in the light, with honor, with truth, and with both feet fully planted in your light. When a married man desires you, one of the most telling signs is the way he becomes increasingly secretive about his actions and whereabouts. This secrecy is not a mere quirk or a harmless habit. It's a powerful signal that he is consciously hiding parts of his life from you and from others. The truth is, secrecy breeds suspicion. And in relationships, suspicion always grows from a foundation of betrayal. Think about it. When someone truly cares about you, when someone respects the bond they share with you, transparency naturally follows. There is no need to hide phone screens, to delete messages, or to avoid questions. Openness builds trust, and trust is the bedrock of any meaningful connection. But when secrecy creeps in, it corrodes trust like rust on metal. Slow, relentless, and destructive. You might notice subtle behaviors at first. He becomes protective of his phone, guards it like a treasure chest, and makes sure you never see what's inside. He might change passwords or be quick to switch screens when you enter the room. Maybe he suddenly starts being vague about his schedule. "I'm meeting some friends," becomes the go-to phrase, but the details are always missing, always fuzzy. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The more you try to grasp, the more it slips away. This secrecy often extends beyond digital walls. He may avoid introducing you to certain people, keep his social media presence carefully curated, or even lie about small details just to cover up inconsistencies. Each lie, each evasive answer is a brick in a wall that separates you from the truth. And that wall grows higher every day, blocking you out from what should be an open and honest connection. Here's what you need to understand. Secrecy is a form of control. It's a way to manipulate the narrative, to keep you guessing, doubting, and questioning. It's designed to keep you off balance, to prevent you from seeing the full picture. When someone is transparent, they invite you into their world. When someone hides, they are keeping their true world away from you. It's painful to admit, but secrecy often means there is a second life, a hidden reality that he does not want you to discover. This hidden life might involve another woman, or it might be a collection of lies meant to protect him from accountability. Whatever the case, the secret is a sign that he is not fully committed to you, no matter what words he uses to convince you otherwise. And this is where the danger lies. You may find yourself caught in a cycle of suspicion and denial, wanting to believe the man you desire, yet feeling the sting of doubt that secrecy brings. This emotional tug-of-war drains your energy and erodes your self-worth. It blinds you to the truth that a man who truly desires you will not need to hide from you. The strongest relationships are built on the foundation of honesty and vulnerability. When secrecy becomes the norm, that foundation crumbles. You deserve to be with someone who chooses to be transparent, who values you enough to share their whole self without fear or shame. Don't settle for a love that lives in shadows. Demand the light, demand the truth, and demand the respect you deserve. Because at the end of the day, real desire is not just about stolen moments or whispered secrets. It's about being proud to stand with you openly, boldly, and without hesitation. And if he can't do that, then it's time to ask yourself who he really desires. Let your worth be your guide and never accept anything less than honesty.